brother?
My name is Brother Timothy.
Overall experience today at the mosque.
My overall experience, I say it surpassed what I expected. I didn't know what to expect. Growing up, I've always heard God. You would hear about God, and you would always think it's some ghost, like the minister, non-existent thing. Now I know that Allah is in the form of man.
Sir, if you invited someone, how would you explain your experience of it?
If you're lost and want to be found, come to the nation. Simply.
That's a bar. Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you guys.
Yes, I heard.
Assalamu alaikum family, it's your brother Landon X and this is NationTownTV Live. We doing the EastSide story. Once again, we got it kicked off last week, but we had some technical difficulties. Inshallah, we'll have a smooth show today. And of course, we got our beloved brother on deck with us, Brother Lebo. I'm going to bring him on in a moment, but first allow me to open up in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness that there is but one God who mercifully intervened in our affairs in the person of Master W. Fard Muhammad. I further bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, to be right and exact, and down to these modern times. And lastly, I bear witness that this beautiful brother over my shoulder, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is indeed our divine teacher. He is our human torchlight in this dark hour of falsehood that we now live. And in those three great names, I greet the NationTown TV family in the words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. First and foremost, dear brothers, I want to shout out everybody that's chiming in, all of the NationTown family. We are multi-streaming on both YouTube and Facebook. All praises due to Allah. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. Hit the reminder bell. Hit all that good stuff. So every time we go live, you'll be notified immediately. Also, this is, of course, NationTown TV Live, the East Side story brought to you by none other than NationTownStore.com. Go on NationTownStore.com. Get your nation-owned, black distributed. I mean, just bliggity black, blackety black. And there's no other way it should be. Go ahead and get you some soap, get you some toothpaste, the world famous bean pie, the whole nine. Go ahead and show love to NationTownStore.com. And of course, you can also show your love by a dollar or a rack or a couple of racks. Hit us up on $NationTown, $NationTown on Cash App. We got some real big things coming here in Los Angeles, and I'm gonna tell you more about it on future broadcasts. But your help and your overall support would definitely be appreciated. But with that said, I want to jump right into our episode today. We don't intend to be on, but if it be the will of Allah, I do intend to be on strong. With that said, what we're dealing with today is a topic that me and Brother Lebo talk about a lot, and that is the existence and the interference that the enemy uses through what's known as agents and provocateurs, not just in, positive pro-black organizations, but what a lot of people don't know is that these agents and provocateurs that come from not just the alphabet boys, such as the federal government, but also the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, among others. There are a lot of different, clandestine groups out there that send agents and provocateurs into organizations wherever you find black and aboriginal unity. And what a lot of people don't understand is that they are in the street organizations. In fact, that's why our street organizations are in the condition that they are now. If you talk to a lot of brothers and sisters who are old school, who are around during the inception of the Bloods and Crips, the Bounty Hunters, and all those types of old school gangs, and even in the Midwest, GDs, Vice Lords, and so forth, they'll tell you that in the beginning, in the origin years of those organizations, they were like offshoots of the Black Panther Party. They were very positive, very organized, but somewhere down the line, they got mutated into the situations that we see today. And that wasn't just because the weather changed. That wasn't just happenstance. That wasn't osmosis. It was intentional, and it was directly intentional. And we're going to talk about that today because our beloved Brother Lebo, who I'm about to bring on, he's, operated on both sides of the fence of righteousness, if you will. He knows some things, and experienced some things. He's brought some things to my attention that we're going to talk about. And if it be the will of Allah, we're going to go into a little detail with. But like I said, we might just be on about 30, 40 minutes, but we just want to touch on this topic. Might have to do a part two, but without further ado, I want to bring in my beloved Brother Lebo Muhammad. Brother Lebo, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, dear brother. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the NationTown TV family.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, family. My name is Brother Lebo. I'm your neighborhood brother.
That's right.
You see me, we can talk, we can communicate, and we can share our ideas. I'm registered in the Nation of Islam. We meet on 81st and Vermont, 8039 South Vermont Avenue, every Sunday at 11.
That's right. All praises are due to Allah. Indeed. So let's jump right into it, Brother Lebo. The thing I love about my brother is like, man, you like a South Central historian, brother. I feel like I'm opening the book on, recent. When I say recent, I mean the last few decades. I'm opening the book on like a 30-year, LA Black history when I talk to my brother because he knows, I won't say all of the history, but he knows different sides of the history. If you go to a Black History Museum somewhere here in Los Angeles, yeah, they're going to tell you some things. They might get into the uprising in 92. They might tell you about that one time Martin Luther King and JFK stopped by through, but they're not going to tell you the real, what was going on the East Side, what was going on off of Broadway, what was going on off of Central, what was going on off of Crenshaw. And that's what I love about having my brother on this podcast and that's why we started this series, the EastSide Story. And we're going to have on the EastSide Story a lot of different guests on here, including Brother Lebo, that are yet to come, and a lot of interesting stories because people don't really understand that are not in Los Angeles, the overall dynamics of South Central. Like in New York City, you got the boroughs. South Central LA, it's not monolithic either. We all know about the gang culture. At least we all know something about it, no matter where you live. But starting off, Brother Lebo, we talked about this a lot. And that is the fact that in the street organizations and even in the penitentiary system, you have agents and provocateurs. But every time those two words come up, agents, provocateurs, people always immediately think Nation of Islam, Black Panther Party, SNCC, CORE. They think about certain black leaders over the years and COINTELPRO, but they never stop to think about Blood, Crip, GD, Vice Lord, other little sets, other little gangs. And we talked about something just now before we broadcast, before we went live, where you mentioned the Rico statute, which is now being used like like a chainsaw against any group of black people, especially young black people that's organized and has influence or making money. We see it in hip hop with the brother Young Thug and what he's going through in Atlanta, so forth and so on. And I always envision the Rico statute turning into something that they would use against us, even though it started as a weapon against organized crime and the mafia and whatnot. But tell me, why do you think, Brother Lebo, that when the idea of agent, let me define, because we don't want to assume that anybody out there knows what we're talking about when we're talking about agents and provocateurs. First of all, the word agent, you could be an agent of anything. You could be an agent of something good, something positive. You could be an agent of help. You could be an agent of love. You could be an agent of all kind of stuff. But I'm talking about those who are agents of the enemy in unified black organizations, and they usually come around to disrupt. They're not just trying to get secrets and whatnot, they're trying to disrupt, and they do it through weaker members of that group. Provocateurs, they're almost like the shooters, they're like the hitters, they're the ones who really get stuff started, they're the ones who spread all the rumors, they're the ones who bring things that they know will cause a ruckus in that organization and cause distractions. Brother Lebo, tell me, why do you think and how do you feel about the fact that when people think agents and provocateurs, they never think about our street organizations and the existence of agents and provocateurs in the street organization?
They separate the so-called religious organizations from their own experience.
Mm,
So they don't see it as one. Oh, well, they got a political aim or they on some religious stuff. We just gang banging. What they don't understand, if they knew the history, that the history we learned through the Nation of Islam give us a broad scope of how to look at different activities and aspects of when you're being infiltrated. So each group got to understand, a lot of times when you got that one brother, when you all talking peace, and he be like, fuck peace. You know,
mm,
he ain't the main one that's gonna be with the car wash when you gotta throw a car wash to sell dinners for the burial. So a lot of times they think that they're separate from the Nation of Islam or the Black Panther Party. We ain't into that. We ain't round them white folks up. No, the white folks are rounding you up to kill yourself so you can continue to cause division and miscommunication and violence.
man, that's heavy. That's heavy. Now, you touched on a part of what my next question could be, because you said that one who jumps up and says, "Man, forget peace. I ain't trying to. Man, they the enemy. They the ops. They did this. They did that to us. Man, I ain't trying to sit down with no ministers. I ain't trying to do no peace treaty and all of that." And last week we talked about the monumental peace treaty in the '90s. Tell me this, Brother Lebo, just based on your knowledge and your ear to the street, and also your experience coming up on, what is it, close to almost 25, 30 years in the nation, but particularly in the street organizations. Tell me, what is I'm in let's do it like this. I'm in a street organization, and I'm one of those young brothers who thinks, agents and provocateurs, that's for the Black Panthers, that's for the nation. We out here banging, and ain't nothing for me to worry about. Tell me some of the other things that I should look for that would tell me that there's probably some third party interference going on in my street organization, and it ain't just the ops. Give me some things that I should look for.
You might have, depending on your relationship with those uh, law enforcement agents that patrol your area. you start having casual conversations with them, and
Mm,
then they would drop names on you
mm,
about the ops or somebody even in your own set. You know, that's one big major telltale. A lot of times they use the law enforcement agent, they'll use our women against us also. A lot of times our women be in relationships with law enforcement agents, and they be, pillow talking. Um, you can also listen to the substance abusers. The substance abusers in the community also have a relationship with law enforcement, and
mm,
they exchange information. So they might be seated by law enforcement agents to bring you a message. It's like a misdirective though.
mm.
They trying to get you to look in one direction when all the time it's coming from what God probably revealed to you in the first place. It's a lot of different occasions that you may miss if you're not being attentive. A lot of times we like to relax and smoke a little weed and sip on a little something, but a lot of times we'll miss that because we're not sober minded, and what we were expecting to receive went over our head because we wasn't really attentive. That's all of us. So, but you definitely have to be cautious of who's in your environment, that they don't really do a lot of talking. They just observe and pay attention to what you say and mimic what you say, because sometimes the law enforcement agent might ask them, well, how did he say it?
Mm. Interesting. I was listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's monumental message called The Announcement, where he announced his vision like experience on the wheel, something that if it be the will of Allah this coming Sunday at our Muhammad Mosque number 27 meeting, I will be touching on, uh, you know, to a certain degree. I'm going to be delivering a message called The Battle in the Sky and the Battle on the Ground. And I'm going to touch on this particular issue, but in that message, I found it interesting, Brother Lebo. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he pointed out, how the LAPD and other law, even the sheriff's department, they were notorious. I say were just because we're talking about something that was broadcasted in the 80s. Well, I'm pretty sure they still do it today, but they were notorious in taking a young brother that's from one set, roughing him up, trying to get information out of him, and then intentionally dropping him off in what he would see as his enemy neighborhood, and then telling individuals in that neighborhood that, oh, this is so and so and so and so who shot your homeboy, so and so and so and so. And the minister, I'm paraphrasing, but the minister touched on that in the announcement. I think even believers in the Nation of Islam forget the aspect or overlook the aspect that in that announcement, it wasn't just about the wheel. It wasn't just about Ronald Reagan and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and it wasn't just about Muammar Gaddafi. All of that was leading up to the ultimate aim, which is our young people, young black and aboriginal people here in America in so-called ghettos. But tell me what you know with boots on the ground, ears on the street, growing up in South Central Los Angeles, what you know about that tactic of the enemy of taking young brothers from one set, not only physically throwing them out the car, in an enemy set, but also dropping seeds on that so-called enemy set about that brother or about that set that causes the gunplay, causes the murders and things like that. Tell me what you know about that from your own experience and your time in South Central Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's an actual fact. A lot of brothers can contest to that activity. Um, some would even tell you the experience they had where law enforcement rolled up on us and told them, "Hey, them dudes is around there right now. So if y'all just want to go through there, go ahead."
Mm.
You got to understand the psyche, because they also had people in their patrol area that they disliked,
Mm.
that they felt disrespect them, and they use us to retaliate against them.
Mm.
Some of us sold dope for them. um a lot of people don't know he how criminal the law enforcement agent really is, because he know about crimes, and he know particular prosecutors that'll work with him, and they after work go to bars and grills and drink and hang out.
Mm.
Anywhere where you go and hear about a shooting in a bar and grill where law enforcement hung out, or firemen and stuff, it's something in that similar direction.
Mm.
But all throughout, even right today, you got officers and watch that interact with our sisters that they getting intel from,
Mm.
and they writing um up directives to they upline, and the upline is writing information to the supervisors or the council people, and they writing policies that will affect um our well-being in the community. So yeah, that's an actual fact. They do that. It was an incident, and I can mention this with the uh, a truce jam that we had at Sportsman Park in the '90s,
Mm.
and law enforcement had followed a ops group from deep west, and when they came into the patrol area, they passed it on to the patrol car, and they allowed the men to park. And after the men parked and went inside the venue, they went in there and searched the cars and found guns and everything. And then they contacted the agent Provocateur that helped kickstart a little mini riot until the brothers was able to get it under control. But
Mm.
in the aspect, that group that they searched the car, they ran to go get the guns, and when the brothers got the guns to come out, one of the brothers got killed.
Wow. Wow. That man, that is interesting. Now tell me this, just your, opinion based on your educated assessment, because I know how it's been going down in South Central Los Angeles for the last few decades with the street organizations. Let's say there are 100. Let's say in a 3 month period, there are 100 so-called gang-related shootings in Los Angeles or any city. But based on what you know about LA, let's say you have 100, which is much less than what we actually have in LA every year. But let's say there's a rash of 100 shootings in like a 3 month span. Out of that 100, how many of those shootings, and I'm talking about murders, do you think were based on the provocation or the interference of agents and provocateurs sent into these organizations by the enemy out of 100?
I definitely have to give it at least 64%. It
Mm.
depends on the magnitude of the victim's influence in the area, because a lot of these things are based off of getting rid of influencers.
Mm.
You'll pluck one or two or three, where it seems like it's normal. Oh, okay, this is just the normal activity of violence in the black community. But a lot of these brothers be targeted, and a lot of times law enforcement be behind it, or they might send some another gang, but it's not black.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Because here's something that I just know that our people don't understand, especially our young brothers in the street organizations. And I heard somebody say this before in great detail. They pointed out that peace, 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 when it comes to the police, peace is bad for business. A lot of people don't know the business aspect of law enforcement. For example, one of the best things that ever happened to law enforcement was the three strikes bill followed by the crime bill in the 80s and 90s. A lot of people don't know that what we now know as the crime bill that was written by your boy Joe Biden, it was actually really born in California. In fact, California has been like the laboratory or the petri dish of the enemy for a long time. But what people don't know is that when it's not just building prisons, but that crime bill also armed police departments throughout the United States with weapons, with military grade weapons, because they sold the idea to the people that it was Fallujah in the streets. And I'm not saying it was peaceful. I'm not one of the people who try to have 2020 hindsight and try to act like everything was all good 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I know better. 'Cause I wasn't even raised in LA, and I saw how our communities deteriorated. But they armed it with military grade weapons, and if the murder rate skyrocketed by 40%, and then a police chief came around and knocked it down by 8 or 9%, then that police chief, he got a promotion. He got moved to a bigger city. The mayor could run for governor and say that he brought down crime by 8 or 9%, or he brought down. So it's always good for business when there's an influx of crime, particularly an influx of crime with the most disenfranchised people, because we hardly ever have a voice. Some of that is our fault, but a lot of people don't understand that how crime is good for business. It ain't just basic evil. But evil is never just mean. Evil is always intelligent. Tell me what you know and what you think about that fact, Brother Lebo, that peace in our communities when it comes to law enforcement in a lot of ways is bad for business.
I can reference the 1992 um, rebellion, and it was the night everybody was in the Imperial Courts because each project kind of like housed the event during
Mm,
that time. So the National Guard and the LAPD showed up, and they just got to talking about fuck peace and we ain't gonna let y'all unite and this, that, and the third. And I was shocked though. I
mm,
thought that would be a good thing, like for us to come together and solve these crimes. But as I mature in my thought, why would they want homicides to stop and violent crimes and petty crimes? That's why they allow these little snatch and smash and grabs they talking about now today. Back when I was coming up in the 70s, we only did jewelry stores like that. But now you're doing high end clothing and mostly European based products. I thought we was trying to get rid of that image. But anyway, um they allow these type of things to flourish. Some of the proprietors were doing insurance jobs, and you know, when you look at the real aspect of it, you're looking at a fact that law enforcement really not trying to stop crime because they sell dope, or they force the brothers in the community to sell dope, and they'll
mm,
tip some brothers off to go so and so around the corner, going and knock him down. We ain't tripping and all that. They all involved with they ran the sheriff ran Operation Safe Street. Ain't no crip or blood that here under my voice can deny the fact that they ran that, and a lot of brothers were scared to even deal with them, and they would, you know, um, concede to whatever it is their request was. Same
mm.
thing with Crash when it was community resource against street hoodlums. You know, now they the gang enforcement detail. Come on, man, the brothers side these eyes. Man, the police and the sheriffs would be scared to patrol your neighborhood. Come on. Ain't
That's
ain't
right.
nothing like that happen in Lancaster and Watts and Compton and Los Angeles. You know what I'm saying? As far as a sheriff is concerned, it was an incident with the Compton PD. Maybe one LAPD got uh done, but a lot of times that be their own people doing that to them and blaming the community because We really descendants of slaves, and it's really that fear haven't been bred out of us. They have to come, join on to their own and be themselves in order to accept that type of responsibility.
That's right. That's right. And it's interesting you mentioned the sheriff's department. For those that live in LA and follow the local news, and I think it made national news. You got a lot of people that were surprised to learn that they got actual organized gangs within the sheriff's department. And in knowing that, it makes you wonder how a young brother in a street organization can believe that agents and provocateurs is just something that they do with the nation and the Black Panther Party and other, positive, black organizations. But when they have gangs within their own ranks, that should tell you right there what cloth they're cut from. Tell me, were you surprised? And this is a rhetorical question like a bug. Tell
Well,
me how surprised you were, Brother Lebo, to
I,
learn about those gangs.
I'll answer. I answer it like this: anybody that been under Lennox jurisdiction, Carson Sheriff Station jurisdiction, Linwood, uh, Nadu, you know, we all know that they had gangs, and we all know that they if you wrote one of them up, then his partners then would retaliate.
Mm,
We all recognize the gang codes. That's why you never heard of the Bloods or the Crips taking on the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, and they wrongly accused and convicted people. Same thing with LAPD. Nobody ever had retribution towards none of them people. I don't care out of the thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of cases they had over the decades. So we all know that they had gangs. It wasn't surprising that it came, that about the gangs. It was surprising that they reported it in the news, and they've been knowing that. People been telling them that.
that's right.
But now all of a sudden they want to highlight that, oh, it's gangs and blah 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 blah. They done killed a lot of people in that sheriff's station,
Mm,
at downtown sheriff station. They done did a lot of beatings and whoopings in the glass house and 77th and Southwest and Southeast. So I'm not surprised about the reporting. I was just shocked that they did report it.
mm. Yes, sir. Now tell me this, and we're going to close out in a minute. But tell me this, we talked about kind of like the profile of a street organization provocateur, but also what type of situation could cause a brother who last week was ready to give his life for his set. And now this week, because we ask this question all the time in the ranks, in black organizations, Black Panther Party, Nation of Islam, man, how can a brother come amongst us, soldier with us, say that they bear witness that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger, say that they're for the betterment of our people. But tell me what specific things you think happens when a brother in the street organization decides to be what they used to call a stool pigeon, or decides to be used, and does he always know that he's being used? Sometimes they're being used unbeknownst to their own self and not even knowing what they're being used for. Tell me what's going on and what you know about that kind of brother and what's going on in his mind, what probably took place before he made that move or made that transition to be used, or how he's being used unbeknownst to himself. Give me an idea of what that brother went through before he became a tool and a slave, as it says in our lesson.
The unbeknowing brother, it just could be casual conversation, and the person that's controlling the narrative
Mm,
is manipulating him. You know, and he's giving up information that he think is innocently being said. He
Mm,
don't know, but always remember when they read your Miranda rights, it always say anything you say and can and will be used against you. Um, a lot of times it's coercion. It could be beatings. It could be, the threat of I'm gonna get your family member or whoever that provocateur feel or that handler of the provocateur feel that can make you become more pliant because you have more love for that. So
mm,
you want to protect that. So you might give in. Some dudes give in because they feel betrayed. You know, he might be taking one for the team, and then he find out that one of the homies is trying to hit on his woman or is hitting on his woman. You
mm,
know, or somebody took over their family. A lot of times it be monetarily. And don't never forget that you have a better half, and that individual love interest can coax you into helping you, giving information to them to help you be released faster.
mm.
So, I suggest to the young sisters that ain't really about this life, but you like the materials that it can give you. Don't mess with a brother that's really sincere about his what y'all call today thugging or your gangsterism, or you out there trying to get your money or that bag, because he might stand tall.
Mm.
Like I say, a lot of times the brother is suffering like through a whole transformation and adjustment, and he don't have nobody really there that care for him, just giving him, oh nigga, just stand up to it, and he's not really giving any understanding why he take it to the team, and then the finances ain't there to support the brother when he do fall. All that got to be taken into a factor. I don't condone, um if you involved in criminal activity and you get caught, ride it out, bro. You got check the sentencing guidelines, or check the state guidelines for the crimes that you involved with, bro. Cause murder, it ain't no statute of limitations on murder, bro. I
That's
don't
right.
know who these people is getting on the microphone talking about killings and stuff. Cause go check it. Especially in California, there's no statute of limitations on murder.
That's right.
So I don't know how you going around talking about it and getting away with it. So, that's another aspect of law enforcement. They'll come get you when it's time. Then they gonna force you to tell on somebody because they got this information. You told on yourself. So yeah, it's a lot to be said about that particular aspect of the game.
Man, that's heavy. That's heavy. And it brings me back to something that you brought to my attention. I was doing a lecture series called The Evolution of COINTELPRO. And I think I did two parts. And before the second part, you called me. It was late at night, and you brought something to my attention. I think I might show it next time we broadcast. But you showed me paperwork on our beloved brother Fred Hampton, may Allah be pleased, and the investigation, and also the I would say the setup that led to it and the aftermath of it. And these were federal documents, and I went a little bit deeper into it, and I found the fact that that was basically the prequel or the precursor to the infiltration of black so-called gangs, street organizations on the West Coast as we know it today. That was the origin story of the gang culture that we now know and that is now nationwide and in some instances worldwide. And then it later, morphed into a situation where after the Berlin Wall fell, which was a international COINTELPRO maneuver. They took those same agents, but here's the key part, Brother Lebo. They took those agents and they didn't send those agents immediately to the Nation of Islam. They didn't send those agents immediately to follow Minister Farrakhan or any other black leader, and we know Minister Farrakhan is much more than a black leader, but they didn't take them to the usual types of constructs. They took those agents from Berlin and they brought them directly to the West Coast, specifically Los Angeles, more specifically South Central Los Angeles, and they went to work. They went to work on dismantling all unity efforts, dismantling all of the efforts of the Nation of Islam here on the West Coast. And they used that shows you how important it was. I think I read a story where the whole operation in Berlin, the cost at the time reached up to about $50 million. And that was in the 80s. So today
Mm.
it might be twice that. But if they took $50 million agents and sent them directly to Los Angeles, that should tell all of our young brothers in the street organizations how important it is for the enemy to infiltrate your, because here's the bottom line. The enemy is afraid of black unity no matter what
Right.
construct it falls under. And that's why I love black unity and brown unity no matter what kind. I look at the street organizations. I tell you all the time, Brother Lebo. I say, you know what? When we get to the hereafter, I don't want to see a hereafter where the tribalism is gone. We've always been a tribal people. The scripture speaks on tribes. But I want to see our tribes, owning all the businesses in their set, owning all the real estate in their set, being the police of that set, working with the Nation of Islam to police it and making those communities better places to live. I don't want to see them killing each other no more, but the tribes, I think, should remain. They just have to be revived. So tell me this, Brother Lebo, and we're going to close out. Because, and what I'm about to ask you is something that you do day in and day out on the East Side. I bear witness. What would you say to a young brother who's in a street organization and he just can't see the idea of there being third party law or third party infiltration in his set from people that don't necessarily look like him, and he just doesn't? And what would you tell him as a solution? First of all, how do you talk to those brothers? Because you deal with a lot of brothers, a lot of shop callers, a lot of OGs, even some YGs. What's the main line that you try to use to get them to understand that this is not just the nation's problem? This is not just the Black Panther Party's problem. This is their problem too. You said out of 100 murders, probably 64 of them had some type of involvement with agents and provocateurs from the Alphabet Boys. What do you say to those brothers? Some of them are OGs. They're not all young. What do you say to them to get them to understand how real this issue is in their street organization?
I'll tell them that, listen, you have to follow history. It's mandatory. You got to connect the dots. I'm gonna name a couple of brothers. You know, they talk about Raymond Washington. And how much influence he had in the community, and he was a founding member, and all these accolades. But my question is, why haven't his murder been solved?
Mm,
He falls in the Tupac Biggie Small category. How these prominent individuals, Matt Thomas, who could testify to who killed him? Why haven't nobody claimed the fame to killing them?
that's a good
Even today, oh nigga, I I killed so and so now. You know, so a lot of times, and I'm not just trying to be biased. You could bring a bartender then. So you want, oh, that nigga a crip, or he side with the crip. Okay, well, do anybody have who came and said that they did that to bartender. You know, the issue was between, uh, from my understanding, is salt and bartender. So it's easy to blame the the op that had remained alive after. You know, it was easier for people to point the finger at Biggie when Tupac got killed. You know, so but when Tupac got killed, ain't no more fingers to blame. Now they
Mm,
fishing, oh, 20 years later, so and so then was involved or whatever. Like I say, really ain't no statute of limitations. But you gotta recognize in that who can keep a secret like that? Even girls that's pillow talking can't keep a secret like that.
that's right.
So you gotta be careful. You gotta observe. You gotta watch people and how they conduct themselves, the things that they say. You know, being a young G, you gotta pay attention to what your predecessors done before you that might be wrong, so you won't fall into the same trap. This is why the minister is giving us the information of history so we can understand and proceed in the footsteps without stepping into the mind that's going to explode and blow everything up. He's navigating us in real time. So, young brother, if I was you, I wouldn't even try to make it a negative thing where I'm killing my own people. But it's everything in nature has an enemy.
Mm,
Once you realize who your true enemy is, you could take your gang banging to another level. It's financial gang banging going on,
come on now.
educational gang banging going on, land property and land leasing gang banging going on. It's
Right.
just you got a different aspect of your banging.
That's right. And I stand on that, man. There's nothing wrong with being territorial. I think as a people, we need to be more territorial, but in ways that really matter. And you mentioned the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and his guidance. For those that don't know, we have 38 major points that we follow. We got 16 restrictive laws, we got 12 general orders, and we got 10 guiding rules of conduct. And if we individually follow those things, that automatically weeds out or it dismantles or disarms the agent and the provocateur. You know, I told a brother one time, Brother Lebo, I said, an agent without a weak believer is like a sniper without a gun. I'm going to say that again. An agent
Mm,
without a weak believer is like a sniper without a gun. And these are all laws that our people need to know all around. And that's why we doing this podcast. This ain't like, I ain't going to say no names, but this ain't no podcast where we're trying to exploit the street organizations and the street culture, or even exploit what we're taught in the Nation of Islam. We reaching out to Los Angeles and reaching out to the nation and to all of our street organizations who have not yet come to hear the wisdom of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, or you heard it but you didn't heed the call. Because I'm telling you, it ain't just for the mosque. It ain't no church thing.
right.
This can save your life. I'm telling you, we need to be operating on the FOI's general orders in the corporate world, on the level 4 yard, at the hood day. No matter
Yes,
where
sir.
we are, we need this type of teaching, and that's the whole purpose of this. Brother Lebo, man, it was beautiful getting your wisdom. We may continue the same topic next week, but listen, man, I don't know what other stuff y'all watching out there. All these podcasts that's taking our culture and really the worst parts of it, causing even more. Just pay attention to them. I'm gonna close on this. Pay attention to those podcasts. Y'all know what I'm talking about. They usually got somebody that look like this side of my hand, and they sitting here between 3 or 4 gang members slash rappers or whatever, asking them a bunch of questions about each other in order to cause
Mm,
mischief, in order to cause trouble among the people who are naturally righteous, telling lies. And then it leads to arrests, it leads to RICOs, it leads to bloodshed, and it just leads to embarrassing foolishness on the World Wide Web. But with that said, we're gonna keep this topic going, Brother Lebo. Next time we broadcast, this is your brother, Brother Landon X, my brother, Brother Lebo Muhammad. Both of us are Muhammad Mosque number 27. This is the East Side Story. And also, If you in the Los Angeles area this coming Sunday, show us some love. Come through. Be my special guest. 8039 South Vermont. If it be the will of Allah, I'm going to touch on a very similar subject. The battle in the sky and the battle on the ground, and how those two battles are related, because we are definitely a people that are at war. But once again, this is the East Side Story. We're going to be touching down with y'all every week. We're going to be dealing with everything from our street organizations, the culture here in Los Angeles with our street organizations, financial opportunities, self-improvement, the whole nine. And pretty soon, Brother Lebo, we will get this East Side study group off the ground, because I'm telling you, with the
Praise
tribalism
be
that
to
we
Allah.
have in Los Angeles, we're forced to have the kind of structure, my structure in LA, where a brother can walk across the street and go hear the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because he might not feel safe, going across town to the west side or
Right.
to another side. So our marching orders are clear, Brother Lebo. So we're gonna keep on marching, whether it be boots on the ground in
Yes,
Nickerson
sir.
Gardens, whether it be whatever the case, whether it be social media, whatever the case may be, we're gonna get it in. Also, a special may Allah be pleased and rest in peace to our brother, aka Cheeseball, Brother Jamal, who lost his life a couple of weeks ago. If it be the will of Allah, the Nation of Islam, we will be showing our love to him, because he showed his love to the FOI last time I saw him last year, man. He blessed us with a generous donation, bought up all my pies that I had, showed us a lot of love, but we lost our brother to a senseless criminal act a couple of weeks ago. But my condolences to his family, and I look forward to meeting his family when he has his homegoing services. Dear family, let's be unified, let's be safe, let's be productive. Pray for ourselves, pray for our community, pray for each other. And with that said, we're going to leave y'all as we greeted y'all in the words of peace. We said in the Arabic language, Assalamu alaikum.